So when most people think of Genesis in the Bible, the first stories they think about, obviously, is the creation story, the flood, and Abraham sacrificing his son Isaac. But the rest of Genesis doesn't get the same attention as the other stories. So today, I'm going to tell a story involving Isaac, Abraham's son, and see what we can learn from this. The story we're going to be looking at is in Genesis chapter 27. Isaac is extremely old, to the point where he is basically blind. He cannot see. It's time to pass on his blessing, which carries not only family leadership, but also spiritual and material promises. Isaac plans to give this blessing to his favorite and oldest son, Esau, who he favors. However, Rebekah, Isaac's wife, overhears this and starts to devise a plan. Rebekah wants Jacob, their younger son, and her favorite son, to receive the blessing instead. The family dynamic with Rebekah and Isaac and their relationship is very shaky. John Goldengate says Jacob and Esau never appear together, and neither do Isaac and Rebekah, which symbolizes the frictions within the family. Another point to add on to this family dynamic is David J. Zucker believes that Rebekah and Isaac are actually the ones to come up with a plan to deceive their children. He says in his article, even though they know that they are correct in their decision to give the blessing to Jacob, Isaac and Rebekah cannot bring themselves to tell Esau that he is not the right one to pass on the family traditions. It is too painful of a task for them to deal with directly. The more traditional view, however, is that Rebekah and Jacob deceive Isaac, not Isaac and Rebekah deceiving Jacob. Either way, whether it is Isaac and Rebekah or Rebekah and Jacob, the family dynamic here is not the healthiest. Rebekah comes up with a plan. Isaac had just sent Esau out on a hunt to bring him a meal. Rebekah dresses Jacob up like Esau, covers himself in goatskins to mimic his brother's hairy arms, and brings Isaac a meal Rebekah herself prepared. When Jacob enters, Isaac is suspicious. He questions Jacob multiple times about his identity, the speed of his hunt, and even asks to feel and smell Jacob. But ultimately, Isaac ends up blessing Jacob, believing that Jacob is actually Esau. Jacob received his blessing, and now he leaves. Esau returns at the exact moment when Jacob leaves. He returns to find his father's blessing has already been given away to Jacob. Esau, understandably, weeps bitterly, asking if there's anything left for him. Isaac, in feeling pity, gives Esau a secondary blessing, but it's not the same. So now the question is, what do we take away from this story? For me personally, I see this story as an emphasis on how important family and relationships are. The family dynamics were off, and this leads to the family hurting each other through deception. Relationships with each other can be so important and can make or break futures. Jacob gets the blessing, but it comes with a price. Broken relationships, exile, and years of hardship. But another thing we can think about is God's role in this story. Why does God allow the blessing to go to Jacob if Isaac intended it to go to Esau? Where is God to give Isaac the wisdom that it is Jacob deceiving him? Well, in the story, neither God or Isaac takes away the blessing from Jacob. Isaac and or God doesn't also curse Jacob or Rebekah for the deception. John Goldengate says, God is also the agent of such cursing or diminishing, but human beings can exercise this capacity. God does not micromanage, but God is perhaps more inclined to overrule curses than blessings, as he is more inclined to change his mind about fulfilling threats than about fulfilling promises. However, we can see God's work through Jacob after he receives the blessing. Jacob continues the family line that is being blessed by God. Eventually, he's the father to Joseph, another significant character in the book of Genesis. Jacob was also still used as a leader and someone God even spoke to. God's plans can still occur even if it's not how we imagine them to be. We often think about God's plans for our lives to be a certain way, but they don't usually play out the way we want them to. Rather, God plans the way for our lives a little bit different than we imagine, and it's usually the better way anyways. We can sort of see that here in this story. Isaac wanted to give the blessing to Esau, but instead the blessing went to Jacob. Now, do I believe that God gave that blessing to Jacob? I don't fully think so. I think he allowed it to happen though, and that allowed God's plan to still prevail. Like I said earlier, Isaac never takes back the blessing. He still believes in his son Jacob and thinks that he could still carry out God's blessing. I think while deception and bad things can still happen to us, if it is God's plan and intention, it will prevail and still occur. We should be able to trust God through the hardships, and when we don't feel like everything is going according to plan, we should know that he still has the last say. Overall, this is a complicated but powerful story that you now know about in your knowledge of Genesis. I encourage you all to read the rest of Genesis and see the beauty of God's word in this book. Thank you all so much for watching.